So I live in the city of Syracuse, about a half a block from Elmwood Park, this kind of wooded, beautiful city park, and I walk my dogs down there all the time. And what I find when you walk in the woods every day is you get these revelations out of nowhere, and I've got one that I think anyone of a certain age will appreciate. Not long ago, I'm walking through there, and out of the blue, all of a sudden, I remember the first time I ever used email. Now, if you're 25 or 30, that's like saying the first time you ever used oxygen, right? I mean, we've all used it. But if you're a little older, you remember that moment. If you remember old typewriters, you remember that moment when you sat at a terminal and then you put your hands to the keyboard and you sent them. In my case, it's at the Syracuse Post-Standard in the early 90s. And I sat at that keyboard and I sent a message to a friend on the West Coast, guy I hadn't seen in ages, that in those days you never stayed in touch with him. Poof, the message goes out. 2 minutes later, a response. Unbelievable. A sense of wonder. It was like incredible. I'm a storyteller, a writer. And to me, I remember that feeling, the lift, the idea that, oh my God, this is going to allow me to tell stories, to send stories anywhere. They can travel around the globe. It's wonderful. It's spectacular. But we're human. And really, that was my entree to the internet. And what happened, of course, is that, as with all things humans, there was the wonder, there was this sense of awe, but there was also the ugly. And we've all seen it in the decades since, that the internet is full of selfishness and ugliness and cruelty and a lot of bad stuff. And sometimes there's like a shower of it, and it can wear you down to the point where you feel like you have to clean yourself off, and you feel it can attack your feelings about human nature. But then I go back to the beginning. And I think the internet is no different than any human experience, and all of human experience is about the celestial and the ugly. And that the internet, like anything else, what I have found in my experience is that stories that travel the best are stories about not selfishness, but selflessness. That if you go back to ancient times, selflessness is the highest of all ideals, the idea of putting the other in front of yourself. It's the foundation of all our great religions. The idea of putting the other first, in the end, is as close as you can get to the divine, to the godly, to the sacred. And therefore, in a sense, we have a certain obligation with this deluge of other stuff to tell those stories. So I come here today on a storytelling mission, really, and I hope you'll all join with me in this. And when we come to the end, I'll include you on what that is, but what I want to start with is just one of the most memorable stories that I've ever heard. And that story really comes down to two words: Billy Burke. Billy Burke is a fire captain with the fire department in New York. He's an emblematic story. He's emblematic of 2,996 magnificent stories from the morning of September 11th, 2001. Every one of those stories deserves a full telling, the lives lost on that morning. Billy's a legend in New York now. I came to know this tale because his sister and his brother both live in Syracuse. His sister Liz is a psychologist. His brother Chris, our boys went to kindergarten together. And you find over the years when you have friends that tale has become more powerful. I think everyone in Billy's family would emphasize that he was not a plaster saint. That's not the way they want to remember him. His brother Chris told me about how when they were kids, Billy's the oldest boy, that Chris would be in the front seat and Billy would stick his feet up over the seat at just the right angle and get his foot up by his nose where his parents couldn't see it. He was a big brother. He was a normal guy. Billy was a lifetime bachelor, strikingly good looking. Over his life, dated a lot of women, right? But the amazing thing, and this is what Liz said about him, and think about this skill, this attribute. The amazing thing was that all these women remained his friends after he'd dated them. And you want to know, how is that possible, right? Well, maybe it's because Billy Burke was a lifeguard at Jones Beach for many, many years. One day he's lifeguarding out there, and this is a famous Billy story. Elderly guy shows up in a wheelchair, very frail, oldest living Jones Beach lifeguard. One dream, he wants to swim again. Billy picks the guy up, takes him into the ocean, allows him to body surf, and then buys him a beer. True story. It's a bar in New York City where Billy used to go Bartender's name was Elsie, elderly woman. Regular bartender-patron relationship. Billy would go there routinely. One night he goes and no Elsie, she's gone. Ask the other regulars what happened. They say, hey, she became ill, she's in a nursing home. So Billy hunts her down, finds her, visits her until the end of her time. That was Billy, the other in front of himself. He was also a guy with just a Renaissance guy. He loved to write, he loved literature, he was a photographer, wrote short stories. He could take you to the battlefield at Gettysburg and show you all the different points where great things happened, how the battle was decided. And yet, at core, at heart, at spirit, he was a firefighter. His father, deputy chief in the city of New York, fought fires in the Bronx in the 70s, if you remember those fires. Billy remembered the code. You get the civilians out and you take care of your men. That was like blood to him. So on the morning of September 11th, 2001, Billy and his guys with Engine 21 go to the World Trade Center where 2 jetliners have hit the towers, where steel is running like molten butter. They get there and it's a horrific scene. Jean Traina, Billy's longtime companion and friend, he calls her, tells her stay inside. She says to him, begs him, don't go up in the tower. And Billy says, this is what I do. They go into the North Tower, Billy and his men, and they do what all those firefighters did that morning. They ascend. They go up. They found an elevator that would take a few of them up at a time. They went as far as they can, and then they continue going up by foot. They get to the 27th floor. Their job, remove any civilians, get any stragglers out of the building. Billy's on the 27th floor, fans out with another captain, Captain J. Jonas. They're off by themselves. They're moving through the 27th floor. All of a sudden, the building shakes. That feeling when you're on a ladder and the ladder shakes. Sickening feeling. Billy and Jonas look at each other. They both run to a window. Billy looks out a window and sees the South Tower has collapsed. It's fallen upon itself. Cloud of soot and smoke and material going out across Manhattan. And then he knows. He's on the 27th floor of the North Tower and the other tower has collapsed. He tells Jonas what's happened. He radios his guys. Go downstairs. Go to the rig. I'll meet you there. They say to him, and this line is famous now in New York. It's legend. They say to him, Captain, what about you? And he says, don't worry. I'm right behind you. So his guys go down. Billy's moving through the 27th floor, probably with the intention of following them. But as he's going through the 27th floor, he turns a corner, and he's got a situation. 3 guys. A firefighter, 2 civilians. Civilian's name is Abe Zelmanovich and Ed B.A. Ed B.A.'s a big guy in a wheelchair. As a young man, a catastrophic accident, he's a paraplegic. He's also got tremendous courage. He builds a life. Builds a life, winds up working in the financial center of the world, New York City, for Blue Cross. He and Abe worked side by side, Empire Blue Cross. He and Abe worked side by side. They became close friends. Abe, a guy in his 50s from Brooklyn. They used to play, if you remember this game, they'd play computer golf against each other. Back in those days, they used to go out to eat together. When Ed was in the hospital, as would sometimes happen, Abe would go visit him. So they're close friends, and on the morning of September 11th, when the order comes to evacuate the building, Abe says, well, I'm not going down without Ed. Problem is, the elevators aren't working. Not in the 27th floor. They can't get any farther down. Abe's in this wheelchair. He's a big guy. Pretty much impossible to carry him down the stairs. So they figure they'll wait. Help will come. So firefighters going past left 1 firefighter with them. Billy comes around the corner. That's the situation. He says to the firefighter, you go down, I got this. Now Billy, Ed, and Abe on the 27th floor. Minutes ticking down. Around the corner, another group of firefighters. Lieutenant Greg Hansen and a couple of his guys. They see Billy and the two civilians. They come up. There's a hurried conversation. Hanson asks about the elevators. Billy says they're not working, and there's a certain risk involved with this. Elevators downstairs, very, very dangerous at this point. So they talk about it, and then Billy, same indication to Hanson and his guys, you guys keep going. I'll take care of this. There's no time to argue. Hanson is outranked. Billy's a superior officer. So Hanson's got civilians to worry about, goes back to the stairwell, goes down, he and his men. They're going down the stairs from the 27th floor. They come upon another civilian. He's exhausted. Big guy, tired. Can't go another step. Hanson and his guys go into a corridor, find a chair. They take a belt. They strap this civilian into a chair. They lift him. And they're going down the stairs. And suddenly now, something primal is going on. They understand they got no time. They're hurrying down the stairwell, carrying this big civilian, and they've got no time. They know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, the belt bursts. Guy falls out of the chair. Hanson said they grab him by a leg, they grab him by an arm, they lift him as best they can. We gave him a rough ride, he says, but they keep going down. They still got this civilian. They get to the bottom of the stairs, burst out, they're in a mezzanine. 99 days out of 100, they would have been trapped there. But two police officers have pried open a door right there. There's enough space that the police officers and then the firefighters pull in this civilian, get through the door, and they sprint across the plaza. As they're running, a sound that Hanson said you can't even put into words behind them. Indescribable sound. The ground shakes. The firefighters and the civilian throw themselves onto the ground, curl up in balls, put their backs to the chaos behind them. This scene was just horrific. Hanson said it was hell, that you know what was happening in that plaza. People, debris, everything around them, and at this instant, the tower comes down. They are in balls in the plaza. Hanson said the violence of the impact was so hard that debris, stones, hit him in the back like machine gun fire. He thought it was the end of the world. He thought they were going to die. It goes on for 10, 11 seconds, but they don't die. He is covered with material, with soot. Silence. He pulls himself to his feet. There's fires burning, emptiness. Brushes the stuff off. He's gasping for breath. He looks to his men. He eventually finds everybody, all of his guys, alive. The civilian they rescued, alive. Back at the rig, all of Billy Burke's guys, alive. Billy Burke on the 27th floor with Ed, with Abe, looked at those two lives and realized his was no more important, and he stayed there with everything on the line, with full knowledge of what was going to happen. Abe, also a hero, refusing to leave his friend. He and Billy look at all the years. They put all their years on the table, and they choose those few minutes with Ed. Now, there is debate, loving debate, about Billy's intention, whether he simply knew what the deal was. There was no time. They didn't have time to get out. And he just took care of getting as many guys out as he could, that he followed his father's advice. Take care of the civilians, take care of your guys. His brother Kirst believes fiercely that Billy had some kind of plan. That was just Billy's nature. That he had some kind of plan that he was going to get him out of there. And that simply, in the end, there wasn't time. But the truth is that Billy Burke faced a decision on the 27th floor that, God help all of us, we never face, and stepped up to it in divine fashion. Now, there are memorials to him. Next month, they do a stair climb every year at the Freedom Tower in Billy's honor. Firefighters, all these guys climbing those stairs to raise money for disabled veterans in Billy's honor. His rig, his battered rig, it's in the National September 11th Memorial. And certainly Billy Burke, the memory of him is in the hearts of the people who love him, of his family, of his friends, of firefighters, every firefighter in New York City, firefighters all across the country. But If there's one thing I've learned about stories over the years, is that the only thing that keeps a story alive is the telling. A story untold is no story at all. So this is simply the mission I would ask all of you to join me in today as you leave. Here's the deal. You know this is going to happen. Within 2 days, within a week, within 3 weeks, you're going to come upon somebody who's going to talk about despair. They're going to talk about our political debate. They're going to talk about the internet. They're going to talk about the world at large, and they're going to say, I just get so worn down by all the ugliness, by all the selfishness, by all the cruelty out there. There's like something wrong with us. I don't believe there's any good left in the world. We've all heard it. And all I would ask you to do when you go home tonight or in the coming weeks as your mission is that when somebody says that to you, just respond. Well, wait a minute. I got an answer for you that comes down to 2 words. Billy Burke. Thank you.